it's been a big week. Victoria's stage 4 apparently going to take 12 billion out of the economy. Does that sound realistic to you?
Yeah, good morning, Kieran. It does. It sounds like a number that represents the loss of economic activity in Victoria during the stage 4 lockdowns. So I think if we're going to think about the total cost of this, there was some stage 3 impacts prior to the stage 4. Then there's going to be the gradual reopening. It won't happen suddenly. And of course, as you've been discussing, and I think many have this week, the impact on other states, which I think is quite significant. So I think the actual figure is going to be closer to 20 billion when all is said and done, although obviously it's just estimates at this stage.
We had the RBA forecast update as well. What's your overall sense of where the economy is at, particularly when the health situation remains so precarious?
Well, that's it. This week is really put paid to any idea of a quick recovery, a snapback at any stage in 2020, and also highlighted the importance of getting on top of the health issue. I think we're lucky if the economy is going to build any momentum into 2021. Hopefully, this is the last major sort of set of restrictions and the last wave. But it just highlights, you can see in New South Wales, for example, restaurant bookings have fallen substantially, and all the sort of momentum that was building in June and July has completely been lost. So there's a confidence impact here outside of Victoria. And of course, longer term, business confidence and the commitment to new projects and sort of, looking beyond the health crisis is all being delayed. So, I think the economy is essentially going to remain in emergency sort of support mode right through to the end of this year, and we'll be looking to 2021 for any sort of meaningful recovery.
And we're seeing some of that support via the wage subsidy, JobKeeper, meaning this week the changes will see more businesses qualify, relaxing the rules largely to support Victoria, but it's a nationwide scheme, as we heard with David Littleproud, reinforcing the fact that it's a national approach. Is it the right approach, given obviously the Victorian situation needs more help than, say, WA or Queensland?
Well, it's interesting. It is a national program, but in the Treasurer's press release, they made it quite clear that they're expecting 80% of the funds to go to Victorian businesses and therefore Victorian workers. So this is squarely aimed at Victoria and, of course, any state that gets itself into a similar situation down the track, which, of course, we hope there will be no more of these lockdowns happening in places like New South Wales. So this is really all about Victoria. Is it going to work? Well, look, it's an extension of an existing program. It's all they really had. The toolkit is set and it's extending the existing measures. Really, it's not clear. There's a lot of money there. It's really aligned for businesses that have taken a bigger hit from this second shutdown to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks if they hadn't needed JobKeeper earlier. So, look, I think it's good policy, but it remains to be seen if it's going to be effective and how quickly we can pull out of this, hopefully, in sort of September, October.
And something you touched on earlier is the impact on other states out of Victoria. One of the key issues is the supply chains, isn't it? And whether or not, as the Agriculture Minister discussed with me a few minutes ago, whether or not those supply chains getting produce in and out of the states is still flowing as it should.
Yeah, that's been the big issue this week, is just how much of a scramble it's been for business to try and work out exactly what they can and can't do, and negotiating with the government. We've seen the Australian Food and Grocery Council come out and talk about the need for distribution centres to be working. Their members can produce, the food manufacturers can produce, but if the food's sort of getting locked up in distribution centres, then they're going to have to slow down production because it's just accumulating. So there's been a lot of supply chain issues, not just about within Victoria and making sure that people are getting what they need down there, but Victoria is a major manufacturing centre. It's about a third of Australian manufacturing down there, and of course it's a major food and grocery production hub. So it's about getting out into the other states. So this is critical. It's still sort of early days, and hopefully the government and business have been able to get things in order, and it doesn't have too much of an impact. But I think
how significant is the ongoing border closures in terms of the broader economic performance? How significant is the economic damage done from that?
Well, it is reasonably significant. I mean, obviously directly for the tourism sector, but I think it's also impacting business and their ability to get to that next stage of investing and looking to the future. It's the whole thing has been delayed by this. I mean, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on economic activity in these states, but it is a headwind to recovery. So it's all part of this same problem of what we've seen happen in the past month is just delayed everything and kept the economy well below where it was at the beginning of the year.
And finally, given all those challenges, what does the government need to do in the October budget?
Well, the trick for the government is to sort of move beyond these emergency policies, move beyond JobKeeper and get in place some real sort of recovery policies, fiscal stimulus. So I think the whole focus of this budget from a policy point of view is what is that recovery fiscal stimulus package look like? Infrastructure is absolutely at its core, but there will be other measures that if JobKeeper is going to wind down next year, are there going to be supports for consumers? We're seeing in other countries some really interesting policies about getting people out and spending, such as in the UK, funding restaurant spend and so forth. So I think that's the main game. I think the other piece is, we've really just highlighted how much of a cost this is going to be. The government's estimates from their economic update are already sort of out the door. And I think we're talking about a $500 billion cost at least to government. So you need structural reform to start to really come into the conversation. And this budget is the perfect time to make the case for why some pretty tough decisions need to be made around things like regulation, IR and tax.
UTS economics professor, former ANZ chief economist Warren Hogan, thanks. Talk to you soon.